Okay, so we're on equations of lines, which is 3.5. So we're looking at what do we know for equations of lines. So there's different forms. In the slope section, we were introduced to slope-intercept form. So slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. So in this form, what do we know? We know that m represents the slope, and we know that b represents the y-intercept, right? All right. So in that slope-intercept form, the y and the x always remain y and x, okay? So we're just going to start with slope-intercept form, all right? So with slope-intercept form, most of the times when you're doing your equations of lines, your direction is going to tell you to write the equation of the line in slope-intercept form. So they're going to tell you the form they want you to write it in, all right? So let's say that we are given information. So let's say that they give us and m is 1/2, and then they give us b is 4. So you would write the equation of the line given that information. So you're writing it in slope-intercept form. So you would just go y equals 1/2 x plus 4. Okay, so given the slope and the y-intercept, you can put it directly into the slope-intercept form by substituting in m and substituting in the b. Okay, so let's look at another one. So we have m equals -2, b equals -3. Now they can also give it to you in this form as the ordered pair, right? And then you have to understand that that's a y-intercept, so that would be the b. So in the slope-intercept form, we would have y equals -2x minus 3. So that's slope-intercept form. So given a slope, given a y-intercept, you can write the equation of the line. That's what you have to be able to do. So let's see. M equals -3/2. B equals 3. So what would that look like in slope-intercept form, right? So what will we do? Well, slope-intercept form, so we would have, so you should see if you can do that yourself. Pause the video and you do that. So what do we get? We get y equals -3/2x plus 3. And that's it. Given a slope and given a y-intercept, you should be able to put it in a slope-intercept form, okay? All right, next we're gonna graph using the slope-intercept form. We're gonna graph using the slope-intercept form, okay? Or using the slope and an intercept. All right, so we're gonna use the problems we had. So y equals 1/2 x plus 4. So when you're graphing using the slope-intercept form, what you do is, in this form, what do we have? We have a slope and we have a y-intercept. So remember that the slope is not a point. So you cannot plot the slope. You can only plot a point, all right? And so the only thing we know in this equation of the line is we know the slope and we know the y-intercept. So when you're graphing using the slope and the y-intercept, you always plot the b first. So you plot your b, which is the y-intercept, because that's the only point you already know. You don't have to do a t-table. You don't have to find intercepts. You're given a y-intercept and you're given a slope, which is going to allow you to find another point on the line. So we start with the y-intercept, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I mark my point there. All right, the second thing you do is from your b. So from your b, from your y-intercept, you're going to use the slope to rise and run to your second point. Right? Because we need at least 2 points in order to graph the line. So what we're going to do is from this B4, this 4, right? We're going to use the slope, which is 1/2. Don't think of it as a half because the slope is a rise over a run. So think of it as 1/2. So that means that from my B, we're going to rise up one spot and then run over 2 spots, and you can mark your point. And remember, if you watch the slope video, what's that mean really? It means we can keep using the slope to get more and more points on the line. So from here, I can go up 1 again and then run over 1, 2 and get a 3rd point. And you can just keep doing that to get as many points as you feel you need to make your line as straight as possible on your paper, right? But remember, on the system, you would just plot your B and then rise and run, right? All right. All right, so let's look at the second one we had. We had y equals negative 2x minus 3. So we're going to draw that graph. So what are we doing? Well, we're graphing this line. So how are we graphing it? We're going to use the slope and the y-intercept because that's what we have in this form. So what is my y-intercept? Negative 3. Remember, you have to start with the y-intercept because that's the only point you actually know without having to do a t-table. So we plot the negative 3. And then from the negative 3, we are going to use the slope to rise and run to our second point. Now, the slope is negative 2. So we know that that means that I'm going to rise down 2. So when your slope is negative, you rise down instead of going up. So from 3, negative 3, I'm going to go down 1, 2, and then I'm going to run over right 1. Remember that there's always a 1 at the bottom if it's a whole number, right? So if it's not a fraction, if it's an integer, if it's not a fraction, then that means it is an assumed run of 1 because the denominator of an integer is a 1. All right, and then from here, I have my 2 points and I'm good. But I could also do what? Go down another 2 and then over another 1, right? If I want to just make it straighter for myself on my paper. Okay. So you plot your B first and then you use your slope to get a second point. The slope is like a direction, right? It's a direction. It's not the location. All right. The slope just tells you how to get from one point to the other point. Right? 2 blocks down, 1 block over. Right? Okay. All right. Next, we're going to do this last one over here. Y equals negative 3 over 2x plus 3. You should pause it and see if you can graph that line. I'm going to pause it too. All right. So what we should have done is we should have plotted the 3 first. And then we should have use the slope to go down 3, 1, 2, 3, and over 1, 2. Okay. My recommendation is to always rise down for the negative and then run right instead of going up and to the left. All right. So they might show you that if you try to get the system's help. But I just always use the negative slope as a down rise and then always run to the right. Okay. So graphing slope intercept form. First you plot the B, then you use the slope to rise and run to get a second point and a third point and a fourth point and however many points you want. All right. Okay. All right. Next, we have what is called the point slope form. So the point slope form is y minus y1. So this is like a subscript, okay? So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, all right? So when you have the slope intercept form, what you have is you need to be given a slope m. So you need a slope for this form, and you need a point for this form, which is the x1 and the y1, okay? So you need a slope in this form and the point in this form. So it's called point slope form. So there we go right there, right? So math is difficult. However, look at what they do for us, right? Slope intercept form. Well, when do you use that? When you have a slope and an intercept, right? A slope and a y-intercept. And in the point slope form, when do you use that? When you have a slope and a point. So point slope. So when they give you a point and they give you a slope, you use point slope form. Okay. So when you learn the vocabulary helps you in your understanding. Okay, so just keep that in mind, right? The vocabulary is not nonsense, it matters. All right, so point slope form. So we want to be able to write the equation of the line given a point and a slope. All right, so given a point and a slope, you're going to write the equation of the line. And what they'll tell you is write it in slope-intercept form. And we're going to write it in standard form. All right. And this is the standard form. AX plus BY equals C. That one's just standard, regular, right? So this is our regular format. AX plus BY is equal to C. So we call it the standard form of the line. All right, the standard form of the line. So you're going to be able to have your formulas with you. Even though I recommend that you learn them, you can have them when you take a test on the material. So here we go. So we're looking at given the point and a slope. This looks terrible, but you'll be okay. So given a point and a slope, you want to write the equation of the line in slope-intercept form and in standard form. So let's see. We have a slope of -2 and a point of -1,5. All right. So we are given a slope and we're given a point, and we are supposed to write the equation of the line. So given the information, we are going to use the point slope form. All right. So if you write the formula before you work the problem every time, by the time you finish practicing, you'll know it by heart. So y minus 5 equals -2 times x minus -1. So realize that your point are representative of x1 and y1. So in the equation of a line, the x and the y will always remain x and y in the formulas, in these equations. So when you're writing the equation of the line, the y and the x are always in the form of y and x, okay? It's only your other components that have values there. So here we are substituting in for y1, m, and x1. And now we're just going to simplify because we want it in slope-intercept form. And what does that mean? Well, remember, slope-intercept form means the y is isolated. Y equals mx plus b. So we just got to simplify this problem and get the y isolated. That will put us in slope-intercept form. So here we go. Y minus 5 equals -2 times x plus 1. We have to distribute. Then I'm going to add my 5 to both sides because remember, my goal is to get the y by itself because that is slope-intercept form. That is slope-intercept form, right? So slope-intercept form is the first method. Then they tell us to write the equation of the line in standard form. Write the equation of the line in standard form. So the standard form, hold up. So the standard form is the ax plus by equal to c. Essentially what it's telling you is that the x term needs to be on the same side of the equal sign as the y term. So I'm going to have y equals -2x plus 3. So in the standard form, it's going to be 2x plus y equals 3. So what happened there? Standard form. What happened there? So y equals -2x plus 3. If I'm trying to get it in standard form, I'm telling you that standard form means the x term has to go to the other side of the equal sign, back on the same side with the y. See, ax plus by equals c. There should only be one term on the other side of the equal sign. So this 2x has to go back to the other side. Well, how do you cross the equal sign? Well, you use opposite operation. So I plus the 2x on both sides. And 2x and y are not like terms, which gives me my standard form. Okay? So given a point and a slope, you can identify the equation of a line in both forms. All right, so let's look at another problem. So let's have an m of 6 and a point 2, 2. All right, so we have a slope and we have a point. So what are we going to do? We're going to use the point slope form. So we're going to substitute in our value. So this is x1, y1. Remember, ordered pairs is always x comma y. So y minus 2 equals 6 times x minus 2. So I just directly substituted in. All right, so now I'm going to just simplify. 6x minus 12, right? I distributed that 6. Okay, and now what? Well, we're trying to get slope-intercept form. Well, what's that mean? It means the y has to be by itself. Y equals whatever, right? So we're going to move this plus this 2 by adding it. So we're going to end up with y equals 6x minus 10. So that's my slope-intercept form. Right? That's slope-intercept form. And then what's it say? Also write it in standard form. So what does standard form look like? So standard form would be y equals 6x minus 10. The 6 would need to move to the other side. So negative 6x plus y equals negative 10. And that would be standard form. Okay? All right. Now, the one thing about standard form is sometimes they tell you that the x term should not be negative. And so what they may do is they may get rid of the negative, which you can only do by multiplying everything or dividing everything by -1. So if the x term comes out negative in the standard form, sometimes they prefer it to really be ax, meaning a positive x term. So they would just distribute a -1 throughout the whole problem. So either one of these would be correct. Either one of those would be the correct answer, okay? It just depends. Different books do different things, so I just want to let you know that sometimes they do tell you, oh, if your x term comes out negative in standard form, multiply everything by -1 so that ax is a positive, okay? All right, so let's look at another one. So we have a slope of 3/2, and we have a point of 5, -6, okay? So what are we doing? We have a point and we have a slope, so we're going to use point slope. So we're looking at y minus y1, which is -6, equals m times x minus 5. All right? And so now what? Now we're going to just simplify as much as we can. So y plus 6, double negative, equals 3/2x minus. So 3/2 times 5. Remember, you don't want mixed numbers. So make sure you write it in a improper fraction form. I'm trying to get slope-intercept form, so I have to get my y isolated. Do not be afraid of the fractions. You have a calculator. You have a calculator. So -15/2 minus a 6. I don't have a calculator. I'm going to do it by hand. So it's a 15/2 and then minus a 6. So I'm adding them. I know that. So my common denominator is a 2, 12, 15. -27/2. All right. So we get -27/2. And so from there, that's my slope-intercept form. I'm finished. Y is equal to 3/2x minus 27/2. And that's it. That's it. Once you combine these, you're finished. And so then in our standard form, what would happen? Well, the x term would move to the other side. So it would become -3/2x plus y equals -27/2. Now, the thing about standard form, A, B, C, no fractions are allowed. No fractions allowed. So the final answer cannot be in fractions for standard form. Standard form only, okay? This is referring to standard form only. All right? So you cannot have fractions in your final answer for standard form. So I have to get rid of these fractions. So whatever the denominator is, you're going to multiply everything by that denominator. All right, so my LCD, so everything's going to multiply times 2. So we're going to get negative 3x plus 2y equals negative 27 standard form. And slope-intercept, okay? So when you end up with fraction, you just multiply everything by whatever the denominator is, and then you'll get rid of those fractions. Okay? So remember, don't be afraid. Just use your calculator for what it's there for you to be able to do your calculations when they have fractions in the problems. So equations of the line, you have slope-intercept form, point-slope form, and standard form. Basically, slope-intercept form, you use it when they give you a slope and a y-intercept. And then other than that, you just use point slope form for everything else, okay? But it wouldn't matter. So like, let's look at this just real quick. Let's say I have a slope of 1/2 and they give me a point of 0.2. So when we look at this problem, this is really a y-intercept, but let's say I don't pick that up and I just go straight to point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So I just did direct substitution into the form, right? Because this is x1 and y1. So y minus 2 equals 1/2 x minus 0 plus 2 plus 2. Y equals 1/2 x plus 2. So that's slope-intercept form right there, correct? But let's look at the original problem. I could have gotten that on the original problem because I understand that this is also 0, b. This is a y-intercept, which means I could have gone straight to slope-intercept form and put it in the equation. But even if I don't realize that, point-slope form still works, right? Because that's how math is. So if I want to put this in standard form, it would be negative 1/2 x plus y is equal to 2. Well, what do I need to get rid of? That fraction. So everything's going to multiply by 2. So I end up with negative 1x plus 2y equals 4. And you can leave it like that, but just in case, if everything changed signs, it would be x minus 2y equals negative 4. So either one, because the negative was on the x term. Okay. So that's your equations of lines. That's your equations of lines. And so remember, the only other thing is if you have to graph it, you do what? You use your slope-intercept form, okay? And so you would plot your B and then use your slope to rise and run. All right, and that's it.